Hello and welcome back to the Project Hercules Diaries. It's probably not how you would sound, is it, if you were a reanimated, disembodied skull of a fighter pilot and cast in solid bronze? But I'm not a voiceover artist, so that will have to do. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the first video of 2024. This has just arrived. It is a beautiful piece of work. It's a solid bronze lost wax casting from Tony the Engraver, and I'll put a link to his Insta in the description. The intention was to use this as a gear knob, because on the right hand side of the bike, that's where the hand shift is going to be, but it is a little bit on the heavy side. It weighs in at nearly 1 kilogram, so what I'm going to do is ask for one in aluminium, which will be a lot lighter, with a bronze cigar, and use this for a walking cane. Not that I have a limp or I need a walking cane, but you never know, at some point you might need that such an item, and to have a matching walking cane to go with the chop would be quite cool, I think. Also double as a bludgeon if it gets a bit rough downtown later on. You've got something that you could potentially use as a weapon. My lord. Right, so I'll pop him on there. He needs a name. He needs a name as well. So if you've got any ideas for names for those people, give us a shout. Leave us a comment. So it's the first update of the year, so it's time for the annual clean down of the bench and all of the machines. So everything's looking a little bit tidier than usual. No swarf anywhere, and that includes the Bridgeport behind me and the 540 and all of the other stuff next door in Bob's shed. So we're looking kind of ready for some work for the new year. Now, one of the things that I did at the start of last year was this type of video, and it's quite interesting to look back and see where we were. So this time last year we just finished the crank drillings on the left hand side of the engine for the pulley, and the engine hadn't been assembled finally. So in the past 12 months we managed to get quite a bit done. So there was no oil tank at the start of last year. There were no oil fittings, no oil pipes, no oil in the tank, and no oil leak. that obviously will get fixed. So there's a fair bit of progress there. Also, there was no gusset plate on the frame. There's no gusset plate. There were no coils mounted, no top steady for the engine, no fuel tank. And that's a great bit of work there from String at Raw Steel Choppers, because as I explained it, and as we get a cardboard model from last year, that's as far as we got. That's a really good interpretation, and it's a good size too. There's 16.5 litres in that tank, which should take us a fair way down the road before we need to fill up. There was no gearbox either. The gearbox wasn't even a thought sort of this time last year. We got some ideas as to how we might do it, but now it's been completed. The gear selector mechanism needs to be finished on this side, as does the clutch disengagement mechanism, but that's a great bit of progress there. The next job today is to fit the plate wheel sprocket. It's a 42 sprocket for this right hand side of the bike. Put the chain on from the left hand side to the right hand side, and then count the number of links I need. Then I can order a chain for this side, and once we've done that, I can fit both of the chains to make sure the gearbox is central, space out the clutch if I need to, and fit the right size plates to mount the gearbox. So that's coming along nicely. Round the other side of the bike, if we have a look, this time last year we didn't have any chain for the rear drive. We didn't have the plate wheel sprocket either. We had the clutch, I think, but it certainly wasn't attached to the gear shaft, and we had the drive pulley, but we didn't have the belt. So the final drive mechanism and the primary drive mechanism are a little bit more developed than they were this time last year. And the final thing is the breather. We didn't have the breather on the engine last year either. So there's a lot of progress, but of course the thing that everybody wants to see and hear is the engine start. And this time last year, I did say in the video, we were hoping to get the engine started in Easter. And if we'd done nothing but focus on the engine, nothing but the engine, I think we would have achieved that. But because we've been building the entire bike, there's been a few other things that we've been working on since. But I didn't say which year, and I will stand by that again. I would like to see this running by Easter. I won't say which Easter, but I think this Easter is quite achievable given what's left. So what is left? Ignition Ignition is the next job. I think that's relatively straightforward. I have the kit from Boyer Branston. I've got the wiring diagram. The pickup is in there. The magnets are on the sleeve drive crank, so we can hook all that up, and when the engine turns over, we can make sure that we've got a spark. The only component I need to buy is a plug lead, and perhaps make a spacer for the spark plugs so they're the right depth. So the ignition isn't an issue. It just needs a little bit of work doing. Perhaps a Saturday or a Sunday would sort that out. And the biggest job is, of course, the starter motor. Now, over Christmas, this has arrived. This is a Sprag clutch bearing, but it has a keyway on the outer race and a keyway on the inner race, rather than relying on Loctite, because it's quite a small surface area there. So this one-way Sprag clutch bearing in here will be replaced. I need to put a keyway on the inside of this bearing carrier and a keyway on the outside of that shaft, so I can fit this Sprag clutch bearing in there, and then think about whether or not I can live with that amount of overhang on this shaft. Bearing in mind that the shaft is on a Bendix, so it would have come out that far anyway in the car engine, but to me it looks like it's quite an overhang between that bearing there and where the sprocket will end up about there. So I may end up making a bearing carrier and pavor bearing around the outside of there, just coming off these. That remains to be decided, but it's certainly something I'm thinking about. But I won't need to do that just to get that turned over. So the plate is finished. I just need Matt to weld a little lug on the bottom of there to mount everything to the bike and tension the chain, and then I shall be ready to try turning it over. And then, as my erstwhile colleague Mr. Bob says, then our problems really begin, because he's still not convinced that the automotive starter motor will be able to compress 3 litres of volume. It isn't the compression ratio, it is the volume of gas that is being compressed that really gives the starter motor a hard time. But the starter motor we've got is 2.1 kilowatts. The Dynastart that wasn't quite up to the job was 900 watts, and the rotational speed of the new starter motor is 2000 RPM, whereas the Dynastart was 900 RPM. So there's a good chance that it will work. If not, the simple thing to do, and I say simple because it is quite simple, is just to make a new cylinder head. So plenty going on, not an awful lot of time over the break, but that's okay, because I'm sure, like the rest of you, we're all having a great Christmas. So there we go. As usual, thank you for watching. More updates will follow. Happy New Year, and I will speak again soon.